Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my first ever Saturday stamping. So we are, where are we? Just coming up 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. And it's actually a decent day here in Tofino at the moment. We had a little bit of sunshine this morning, which was lovely. I hope everyone is having a good morning so far. So today we are going to be making a card with the Darling Donkeys stamp set, which I will show you here. One second. And there we go. Now we can see it. All right. Helps if I figure out which way's up and down, doesn't it? So that's the really adorable little Darling Donkeys stamp set that's available through Sale-a-bration just to the end of this month. So there's only 8 more days to get this little guy. And if you didn't see it already, this is the card we're going to be making today. So I did this sample using the Bermuda Bay Oh So Ombre in cardstock, but I'm going to do it in the Granny Apple Green today, just to show you the difference. So the Oh So Ombre designer paper is also something that's available as a Sale-a-bration item, and there's 4 colors. So you've got this pink color, which is Rococo Rose. And then on the flip side of that, you've got the blue, which is the Bermuda Bay. And that's what I used on the original card. And then there is the nice purple there, which I haven't actually used yet, although it's very pretty. And then today I'm going to be using the Granny Apple Green. So hopefully you've had a chance to pick out your favorite color and get coordinating cardstock ready to go. And if you have any comments, please go ahead and put them in Facebook. Good morning, Glenda. I see Glenda has joined me, yay. And sorry, one second while I just adjust something here on the video to make sure that I can actually see what's happening. My apologies. There's always something the first time that you don't quite expect. There we go. Okay. Now we can get going. So the supplies for today, hopefully you've had a chance to get yours ready. We've got an 8.5 by 5.5 card base. We've got a 4 by 5.25 piece of white, which is going to go on the inside of our card. We've got our piece of Oh So Ombre designer paper that's also 4 by 5.25. We've got a piece of white that's 2.5 by 3.5 that we're going to use for our donkey. And we've got just this little guy here that's only 1 inch by 3/4 inch that we're going to use for the sentiment on the front of the card. All right, so let's get started. Glenda, I love the Oh So Ombre. You know what? I have to admit, when I first saw the Oh So Ombre, oh, hang on, I am muted. Yeah, okay, there we go. When I first saw the Oh So Ombre designer paper in the Sale-a-bration catalog, I wasn't really keen on it. And then I got it and I really like it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take this card base and you're just going to fold it in the middle. I pre-scored mine, but if you didn't have a chance to do that, that's okay. Just fold it over so the edges meet. And then I'm going to take my bone folder here and I am going to just run it up and down the edge there. And that just creates a nicer, crisper fold for you. And then we can actually set that aside just for a minute. And we're going to take our Oh So Ombre designer paper. Sorry, just 1 second. There we go. Okay, sorry, learning as I go today. And then we're going to take the layering ovals dies and we're going to cut. So what we're doing right now is design so that we can have a window for our donkey. So I really like these layering ovals dies. They come in the scalloped and the plain. And what I'm using for today is this scalloped ones, I'm using this largest one here. If you don't have these dies, that's okay. You can just use whatever you have on hand. So my hands are going to be off screen just for a minute because I have my die cutting machine just off to the side, but hopefully you can still hear me okay. The trickiest part for me is getting this lined up straight up and down, because when I did this with another card, I ended up with the oval going kind of across this way rather than up and down. So here's hoping today I do a little better job. 1 second while we run this through. Okay. And bring that back. All right. Oh, I did get it up and down, but not quite centered. That's okay. It just proves it's a handmade card because it's not perfect. So this piece, I'm not going to use today, but I'm going to set it aside because I will be able to use that in another card at some point. And this you can now just set aside for a second. And you're going to want to get this piece of white. That's the 2.5 by 3.5 inches. And we're going to stamp and color our donkey. So you want, or at least if you're doing it the same as me, this is the stamp that you would want. By all means, do your own thing. This is your card. So this is the one that I used, and I'm just using the Memento black ink. And I'm going to ink up my donkey here. And by the way, if I'm going too fast or if you need something repeated, please just leave a comment and I will come back to that. All right, so now we are going to center our donkey on our paper here. And just push straight down and lift straight up, and there is our donkey. Let's clean off my stamp here. Sorry for the squeaking. Okay, so what I used to color this guy is the soft suede Stampin' blends. So if you haven't used these before, these come in a light and a dark of the same color. So these are both soft suede, but there's a light soft suede and a dark soft suede. And these are alcohol-based markers, and they blend together to give you shading and depth to your image. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with the dark soft suede, and I'm just going to add a little bit around the edges. He is cute, isn't he? I really like these donkeys. I'm just going to add a little bit of this dark brown around the edges of the donkey's body here. And the other thing with these, because they're alcohol based, you want to color just a little bit at a time. Otherwise the alcohol dries and then you can't blend them. So, the other quick thing is there's two ends here. This is kind of like a Sharpie end on it. And this end is more like a felt pen end. So when I did the dark, I used the thinner end, the Sharpie end, but now I'm using sort of the felt end. And what we're going to do is just go right over top of the dark that we put on here initially. And we're just going to blend it in, hence the name Stampin' Blends. So you'll see at first that you can still see the line from the dark, but as you go over it, it's going to go around the flower stem here. It's going to pull the dark in, so you end up with some shading. Okay, and I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side and just go over it until we pull all the color in. And you can go over it multiple times. If it's not as dark as you like, then you can just go over it again or use the dark. You can see I've kind of got a bit of a line there. So I'm just going to blend that a little bit. Okay, now the next bit, I'm going to do the same thing just up on his face here. I'm just going to add a little bit of the dark around the edges. And then I will take the light and just blend it in like we did on the other part. So I hope everyone's having a good Saturday. At the beginning, I just said we were having sunshine, and now welcome to Tofino. Wait 5 minutes if you don't like the weather. It's raining. Well, it was nice this morning. what can we say? It's February on the West Coast. All right, there's that. And for his nose, I actually just did light because I wanted a bit of contrast. So I didn't do the dark on here. Do his nose in the light. There we go. And then we're just going to keep going, add a little bit of dark to his ears. And color in with the light. Sorry, just double checking something here. Okay. And just blend that in until those dots of dark that I added don't show anymore. One other point about these Stampin' blends is that because you go over it so much, it does bleed through the paper. So you want to make sure that you've got something underneath to catch the color. I've got my grid paper here, but whatever you have, scrap paper, whatever you want to put underneath, it will bleed through a little bit. So make sure you've got something underneath. All right. Adding the bit of color to his legs. Okay. Almost got it. There. Oh, I can see there's a couple dots still there. So I'm just going to go over it again to blend it. And then a couple dots on his tail to add some depth there. Blend that. Add a bit of color to that. And then his little bit of hair on top there, I'm actually just going to do that one in dark so that it stands out a little bit. You can, of course, blend it if you wish. But I wanted to have it a little bit different. And just fill in that little gap of color there. There we go. All right, there is our brown. So the inside of his ears, I used, what's this one? Flirty Flamingo, that's it. And again, this is the Stampin' Right markers. They have a thin end that's kind of like a ballpoint pen, and then a thicker end that's kind of like a paintbrush. So depending on what size space you're trying to fill, you can use either end. And if you do scrapbooking, by the way, this ballpoint end is really good to use for journaling in your scrapbook. Or just writing on cards if you don't scrapbook. Okay, there's his ears. And then the rose, I did real red, oops, wrong end, real red on the rose. And then I used just Jade on the flower stem. And this is where I'm going to use the thin end of these markers so that he doesn't end up with green teeth, because we don't really want a donkey with green teeth. And this Just Jade is one of this year's in colors. So Stampin' Up! Has 4 color families with 10 colors in each, but then they also have 2 sets of in colors that are only available for a limited time. And this is one of the 2020 to 2022 in colors that I really like. Well, green's my favorite, so just about any green I like, but that one's very nice. And then some basic gray on. And there is our donkey ready to go. All right, so what we're going to want to do is end up with the donkey in our window. But I found if you put adhesive around the donkey, then the adhesive can end up showing through here, which you don't want. So what I recommend is to take the adhesive, and I'm using Stampin' Seal. And I'm gonna just kind of run that around the edge. Little trick I learned from another demonstrator is if it doesn't start, just kind of run it on your hand until you can get it started. There we go. Every once in a while, you need to give it a little helping hand. And I'm just gonna go around the edge of the back side of the designer paper. So not the color you want showing, the opposite side. There. And now we can get our donkey, and you can just kind of put this over top and make sure he's, well, let's make sure he's straight. How about that? And just get it centered where you would like it. Set it down. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna press down. Little neat thing about the Stampin' seal, if you don't press down, if you just set it down gently, you can pull it back up again. Okay, so there's our donkey. And then I'm gonna put Stampin' seal on the back of this. And you can see that I didn't get this completely straight on the back side. That's fine, that's the back side of this. That's what's, so I'm just going to add a bit, oh, get this started again. Bit of adhesive on the back of the card, or the Oh So Ombre rather, around the edge here. Like so, and then this is going on the front of the card. So this we're just going to center on here, like so. And now we have that ready to go. So now we're going to want to take this little tiny piece of white. This is 1 inch by 3/4 of an inch. And I'm using the sentiment that says, "Hey there, friend." And again, I'm using the Memento black ink. Get the ink on the stamp. And sorry, just gotta pull that towards me a little bit so I can get it centered. Like that. Oh, see, this is actually a good thing. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can get it closer to the camera, if I can show this to you. So what I did when I put my stamp on the ink pad, I pressed a little too hard and got ink on the edge of the stamp. And then when I stamped it on here, you can just see in this top corner, it left a little ring. So first of all, good lesson, don't press too hard on these. Second of all, this is why cardstock has 2 sides. So we'll just do this again on the other side. Make sure I don't have any, there we go, ink on the stamp. And press that down. There we go, that's much better. And I'm just going to clean this stamp. Set that off to the side. So this sentiment I actually put on dimensionals. So I'm going to put a couple of dimensionals on the back side here. Glenda, that's so funny. I do that all the time. You know, me too. You'd think I'd learn, but apparently not. But that's okay. That's the joy of making cards by hand. Sometimes, often, you don't get it perfect. And we're going to put this sentiment. I had it down in this bottom right corner, but wherever you would like to put it is perfectly fine. There. Okay, and I'm going to set that aside just for 1 second. And then we want this large piece of white that we still have. This is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And this is going to go on the inside of the card. Now, I could just put it in like this. That would be perfectly fine if you want to do that, but I like to add a little bit extra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Granny Apple Green ink pad, which I will open up here. Oh, and there's a hair in it. You know, it's a project from Jen when it has hair and or cat fur in it, because that's just how it goes in my house. So we're going to do sponging. So you just need a little piece of sponge. This is just a regular household sponge that I bought at the store. And I've had other colors on it, but it's not going to get this color on the project because this is dry. So what we're going to do is just tap the sponge in the ink pad, and then you're going to just run it down the edge of your card. So it's going to create Can you see that? There we go. It's creating just a little bit of color at the edge here. And you can change the angle. So if you have it almost flat, it's going to create a large rim of color on your card. If you have it more at a sharper angle, then there'll be a bit less color. So whatever you want to do. And we're just going to run the sponge along and just periodically pat it back on the ink pad to re-ink it. And this always makes a fun sound. You can always tell if there's a group together, you can always tell who's sponging because you can completely hear this. I find it quite amusing. Okay, get that all the way around. Set the sponge aside. And we do still want our Granny Apple Green ink pad because we're going to take this little stamp, the Hee Haw stamp, and I'm just going to stamp it twice down in this bottom right-hand corner. So again, don't press too hard. See, I've got the color around the edge again. There we go. And once, and I'm going to re-ink it so they're both the same shade, and twice. There we go. There is our little hee haw inside the card, just for a bit of fun. Get my ink pad out of the way here. Okay, so now we want to put this on the inside of the card. So we're going to flip it over and again add our Stampin' seal just around the edge. I don't think I mentioned this before, but one little trick with this, if you get to the end of the run and you just pull the Stampin' seal off, it can create a trail of the adhesive. So you just kind of flick it at the end and it cuts it off nicely instead of pulling. If I just do that, you probably can't see it, but there's adhesive now between the Stampin' seal and the cardstock. So we just want to flip that so it doesn't pull. There we go. And make sure this is the right way up now because there is a bottom to it now. And we're going to center that on the inside of the card, like so. So as I mentioned, if you don't have a sponge or you didn't want to take the time to do that, you can just put this on the inside. I happen to like adding a little bit of color around the edge and just a little something on the inside. So our card is mostly done, but in my opinion, the card isn't done until there's some bling. So in this case, I am going to use the Rhinestone Basic Jewels. And I just put a few around the outside. So wherever you would like to put them. And there's a couple different sizes. So you can just put small and big ones wherever you want them. Just to add a nice little finish. Like so. Very simple, but it adds just that little bit. Let me pick this up a bit and you can kind of see them sparkling a bit there. And there we have it. There is our very simple Darling Donkey card. And you can use this for just about any occasion, a birthday or just to say hello to a friend, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to bring this one in just to show you the difference. So there's the blue and the green, done with the same layout, but it's kind of a different feel to it with the different colors. All right, and that is my first Stampin' Saturday. So thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I will be back next Saturday. And the plan at this point is to do the February paper pumpkin kit. I haven't actually got it yet, but the post office assures me it will be there on Monday for me. So if everything goes well, oh, thanks, Shanna. If everything goes well, then I will have February paper pumpkin next Saturday. So thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you next week.